The Canterbury Tales is the most important work by Geoffrey Chaucer. It is the work of his maturity and the work that gives way to what we generally call the important English literature. The Canterbury Tales is a collection of short stories narrated by pilgrims on their way to the Canterbury Cathedral. It is a pilgrimage. Naturally, pilgrimages are on a religious level, but the opportunity is given by this meeting of people belonging to different social classes at the Tabard Inn in London, where the host suggests that each pilgrim should narrate a story on two stories on their way to Canterbury and two stories back, and the best story will win a prize, a free dinner at his inn. Naturally, we were saying that we find different people belonging to different social classes. We have men, women, we have people belonging to the clergy, monks, artisans, merchants, soldiers. I mean, there's a lot of different people that are described in the particular from how they dress and how they consider themselves. And that is very important to suggest this medieval period that Chaucer is bringing out. We were saying about the pilgrimage. Well, pilgrimage in those times were very popular all over Europe. We have different, very important pilgrimages that were very popular and famous. The pilgrimages going to holy places naturally create also an economical system, if we can say, because along the route of these pilgrimages, there were built churches, inns, and places where people could eat, like taverns and so on. But we can also describe it as a double meaning of these figures. From one side, we have naturally the spiritual experience of the Christian person that wants to dedicate his life to this, by the way, suffering journey towards the relevances of the spiritual places. But we have also a kind of collective social event where people manage to interrelate with other people, exchanging experiences, just growing from a social point of view. We were saying this is the Canterbury Tales is a collective idea of different stories belonging to different people, and we have all these stories set in a kind of framework of a prologue. And the first idea that comes to our mind is to make a comparison with Boccaccio's Decameron, where also there we have these boys and girls, 7 girls and 3 boys, that retire to the countryside to escape the plague that was taking place in Florence in that period. And the same way as we have seen before is the organization of the Canterbury Tales. The opening lines of the general prologue, where it is described the time and the setting of this important work. Well, the time is spring, naturally. Spring is a rebirth of nature, where nature comes to life again, but it has also naturally another important meaning, that is that people are with the new temperatures are apt to go on a pilgrimage, and so it's easier for them to walk along those not very well done roads of the time. So the beginning of the general prologue is so wonderful to give us the main idea on how it works and how it is described when it says, when in April the sweet showers fall and pierce the drought of March to the root. So this rebirth, this becoming again to the spiritual roots of the rebirth of man is a wonderful beginning for the Canterbury Tales. So we were saying the general prologue, all the pilgrims are introduced, while in each tale, usually it is preceded by an introduction to the theme that it is introduced. So we can say that even if the different stories, the tales are narrated by each pilgrim, it is the reporting pilgrim, that is Geoffrey Chaucer himself, that in some way tells us from an ironical point of view what the situation is and who the people are. Irony, satire are generally characteristics of the works of Geoffrey Chaucer. And so this satirical portrait of the religious characters is a characteristic of the criticism that Geoffrey Chaucer dedicated to the Church of the Times. That, as we have seen in the other part, it was something really to criticize. And for example, if we go back to one of the stories that describe one of these monks, for example, the pardoner, we can see in what way he manages to sell his relics to people that just believe in every word that he says, just because they are faithful Christians, and so they believe in the word of the belongers to the Church of the Times. So we can say that this is a kind of organization and also a very particular description of the people of the time. And it can be quite, not really normal for the time to describe so in particular also female characters. Women have an important role in the narration and description of their stories. So these female characters, just two of them that are generally quite often talked about. We have the prioress. The prioress that is that should be described as a faithful nun, but that's not only what Chaucer talks about. He very much endures in describing the refined woman that is in that particular characteristic. Or, for example, the wife of Bath, that is quite unconventional, we can say, liberal woman. The unity of the poem, as we said, is the pilgrimage to naturally to Canterbury, to the Cathedral of Canterbury. And this is the most important pilgrimage in England in those times and even later on. They go to visit the shrine of Thomas Becket, that was proclaimed saint after his misadventure with the king of the time, that was Henry II. Well, Henry II, just to open a window on the historical moment in which we are talking about, wanted to reduce the power of the church, wanted to have also the church under his control. But Thomas Becket, that had been proclaimed by him, by the king, Archbishop of Canterbury, opposed a very strong criticism towards this intention. In fact, he did not accept what is generally called the Constitution of Clarendon, that was done in 1164, in which we see that the king wants to become always more present in the organization of the church, so that the king's authority should refer also to the investment of the bishops, and also to put the clergyman in condition to be also tried by a civil court and not only by an ecclesiastical one. So for this strong opposition towards the policy of Henry II, Thomas Becket was murdered in the cathedral, in Canterbury Cathedral, in 1170, and now it is remembered on the 29th of December on our calendars. Now, we said that this Canterbury Tales in some way is organized in different stories. It is done in rhyming couplets with iambic pentameter. That's how it is organized. This book was first published in 1387, and we can say that is the first book that was published in the English language. That is why it has become a referring point for the language and for how it represents the society of the time. If you remember, we have already described the vivid, energetic setting of London in the times of Geoffrey Chaucer. So all these people that he describes in his tales belong to the real society of the time. So that it is naturally a referring point to understand the English society in the times of Geoffrey Chaucer. And the structure of the poem, it is a narrative poem. We intend with a narrative poem that is poetry that tells a story in some way. So it is written, as we said, in rhyming couplets. So it talks about the stories that we have already said. And I think that this idea of the Canterbury Tales, together with the times that Geoffrey Chaucer has lived, represents the first important step of English literature.